Yeah, yep. That's it. We're going. This is it. This is the show. Welcome everybody back to another episode of People Pleaser. What'd you think I was done? Maybe you thought I was done. It's been a minute. It's been a couple weeks. I'm here with what I was thinking about this. I was gonna look this up and I didn't look it up. What is the son of my cousin? What is that?
Apparently, on the mom side, it's your cousin. That's what I've heard. I
That's
always
just what
thought of
it's
you as
called.
I thought of you as my second cousin, but I guess we are just cousins.
Yeah, because a
But
second cousin is
yeah,
like my dad's cousin and his kid. They're his kids. My dad's cousin's kids are my second cousins. Because it's like my dad's brother's kids are my cousins. Your mom is my mom's sister's kid, and so
right.
yeah, so your mom's my cousin. But then I've always just thought of you as my cousin. So
We're kind of complexly related somehow.
yeah, I'm like, what is the name for that? And I'm like, I don't know. I think I'll just call you my cousin. And
Yeah, I think that's simple and, why not?
yeah, yeah, I'm gonna say this in the intro of the audio version, but since the YouTube version doesn't have the intro and outro that I do for the audio version, I'll say this for the YouTube crowd. Content warning, top of the show. We're going to be talking a little bit about mental illness, a little bit about death, a little bit about suicide, grief, things like that. If that's stuff that's a little heavy for you, maybe this isn't the episode. But we're also going to be talking a lot about just like art and the creative process and all of that stuff too. So I don't think it should be too heavy or gruesome or anything like that. Just talking about the reality that people die sometimes in different ways. In fact, everyone ever uh, has died and will die. So,
We're all gonna die.
yeah. Uh, but we got David Allred here. David, how are you? How are things going?
I am doing pretty good. It's really a pleasure to be doing this with you. For a little context, I feel like, we kind of happened into a nice conversation privately, reconnecting for the first time in maybe somewhere over 10 years. Is
Mm-hmm.
that right? I'm trying to remember last time I would have seen you.
Yeah.
Um, and that was funny because you were saying something to the effect you thought I was still 22 or something along those lines because I haven't seen you since then, but now we're both in our 30s and we're
Uh-huh.
just getting older and
Yeah, is that thing. Well, I think the last time this probably isn't the last time I saw you in person, but the last time I can like think of it is when you were tracking trumpet for my old band. We had you come over and
oh
throw a
yeah.
trumpet line down on a song, and you were like 22 or like somewhere in there, like 21 or 22. You had just finished music school, or you were like in the middle of it maybe, and you were a trumpet playing fiend. You were just like playing up a storm on that trumpet, and we had you come over and do some trumpet on a song. And that's the last time that I can remember us like being in person in the same place. But I might be wrong about that.
No, I think that's right. It's a long time ago now. It feels like, multiple lifetimes between then and now. Um, but yeah, I remember with Chris and you, and that was really fun. And yeah, really nice to connect with you in the form of a podcast after all these years. It's so cool.
It's funny too, yeah. Like, and what I said is somebody just said in the comments, "Time jump," which is an inside joke from a series of videos that I do, and it is. But it's like, yeah, you said that the other day. We were chatting on Instagram, and you said 31, and my brain was like, "That's not right." And then I was like, "Yes, it is, because I'm 35." It's like, yeah, and it's like that thing where you just like you assume that everyone else that you're not seeing while you're aging is staying the same as they were the last time you saw them. And then it's like, no,
Yeah.
that makes no, yeah, he's also been living a life that whole time and doing. And I've known that. I've been tangentially aware of what you've been doing, just via the family and stuff. And I've been aware of your music career and of like how hard you've been working on that and just like kind of ferociously pursuing that and relentlessly pursuing that. And I've been aware of like, you know, the tours that you've done in Europe and things like that. And so I feel like I've been filled in on the goings on, but it's always just like little bits and pieces that I get here and there. Where are you now?
Yeah, no, yeah, and another thing too is I don't share too much about my life on the internet, and if I do, it's like usually a joke or something me usually if I release music or I have an update, I'll share that. But right now I'm in Portland, Oregon. I've lived here kind of off and on, but predominantly in the last 10 years. I moved here in early 2013. I packed my car one day. I had never been here before, and I didn't really have any reason to be here. And I just drove from Sacramento to Portland, which is like somewhere between 10 to 15 hours of driving. And I've basically been here ever since. Um, Kind of found my life here. Didn't really, I was young and spontaneous. I was 21 at the time. Didn't really think it through, but it worked out, I guess, in a lot of ways. And yeah, a lot of music stuff has happened since then. A lot of evolution in my life. You know, being in your 20s is a really different feeling. I'm 31, so I'm a little bit. Do you feel like you're young still? Like, do you still think of yourself as a young person, or do you not? Like, I'm at a. It's a weird age we're in, I think.
No, yeah, kind of. But the internet disavows me of that illusion all the time because people always tell me how old I look in the comments. People are very brutal. But they'll also say this thing. It's like this, it's like this exact age range that they say all the time that people will be like, this guy's either 25 or 50 and I can't tell. And like, and I think it's because like I have like a youthful energy still. Like I carry
Yeah.
myself and talk like I'm like I still think I'm like a young scenester, like I'm like still out there, like going to shows and making art and stuff. But it's like, no, but then people are like, but you look like shit. And I think that's what people are saying. Is that you look haggard, dude. Like you look older than 35. And I'm like, all right, you know, but it's weird. My whole life as an actor, I always looked younger than I
Mm,
was, and I was always playing like teenagers and stuff all the way through my 20s. And then like at some point, like 32, 33, all of a sudden everyone was like, you look 50. And I was like, oh, okay.
well,
I
I
was
think
like,
you look great. It's probably some kind of TikTok illusion because, there's a lot of kids, and you're one of those few people that are millennials or older that's really like killing it over there. And maybe they're just, I don't know, shocked at the fact. But
yeah,
I think, I don't know, in my perception, I feel like you look your age. I don't know.
I, I think
Yeah.
so. Yeah. And I do,
You don't
as
look
far as
55,
feeling,
that's for sure.
yeah, as far as feeling young, it's like, yeah, no, like I feel good. I feel like I'm at a good age. I feel like I'm really like thriving. Like I'm at like a spot where like I think I'm living the kind of life that I would have hoped to have been living in my 20s. But my body also is like just my back hurts a lot. There's always like something
Mm,
wrong. There's always like something that I'm like, okay, what's that?
yeah.
Why? And there's always, yeah, and that started happening around like 28 or 29. And it's just like progressively. And now it just makes me think like it's only gonna get worse, right? Like I'm gonna be like in my 40s and be like, you know, but yeah.
Yeah, I was skateboarding like a few months ago, and I was trying to impress my girlfriend with this super cool trick, and then I ended up breaking my ankle, and it was it was like not very graceful. And I was, I used to skateboard a lot back in the day. I was pretty good, and hurting myself now feels really different. Like I yeah, it took a I'm totally healed now. I actually healed quite well. It's really weird. The body does just heal itself, but it made me realize, okay, like I've had a lot of awakenings of I'm getting older, but that was one where I was like, oh, I should really be more careful, take care of myself because uh yeah, it's risky, and healing is not the same as you get older as when you were younger. Um and yeah, I'm trying to just keep skateboarding as more safe and fun than and like ambitious because I'm, yeah, just an old man now, I guess.
Yeah, I need physical activity for health reasons and stuff, but I also need to remember to like keep it chill. Like I play volleyball with friends on Saturdays sometimes down at the
Amazing.
beach. And it's a good way to move around and get some sweat going and stuff like that. But every once in a while I'll like dive for a ball or something and I'll sort of get up and be like, I don't need to do that. I don't, like I don't need to be
I
like
don't need to
laying
I
out.
want to do that, but I don't need to do that.
It's like I don't need to like be impressing anybody. I don't need to be looking cool, and my body's not like super stoked on that. Um,
As long as you look cool,
I,
though.
as long as you look cool, yeah. Uh, so I want to talk a little bit about like what reconnected us. Again,
Yeah.
it's one of those things where I'm always tangentially aware of what's going on in your life because we're familially related. Um,
Mhm.
but we both happen to be sort of fans and appreciators of this guy's work. And this thing, I mean, people who are following me have sort of noticed that like I've sort of dipped out for like the last 10 days. I just haven't it's in my work. I make videos every single day. I'm always my mom's here. She just said, "Hi, you cute boys. Love you both." So Julie's here.
Oh, everyone by the way, I don't mean to interrupt, but everybody must listen to that recent episode with her. That
Yeah.
was just the sweetest thing. Anyway, everybody listen to that. It's you'll learn something, and it's really beautiful.
Yeah, she's great. It is. It's one of my favorite episodes that we've ever done of the show. It was really nice to have her on. But yeah, I make videos every single day, and I'm always posting new content to TikTok and Instagram. I'm usually posting videos to YouTube 3 or 4 times a week. There's always like something going on, and it's a rare instance where I like disappear for 10 days. But this thing sort of like stopped me in my tracks and made me go like I think I need to stop for a second. I think I
Yeah,
have to like
same.
stop and like breathe and like take this in because this was a guy that for a while was like my favorite creator on the internet. There was a minute there where I was sharing. I went back and looked through my history of like my interactions with him on Instagram, and I had like shared videos of his daily for like a few months. I was like, this was like a couple of years ago, and it was like every day I was sharing like his new video, and he and I would message back and forth about it because he'd be like, "Oh, thanks for sharing my stuff," and I'd be like, "I think you're so funny," and like there was a minute there where like he was like, I felt like he was like one of the most underappreciated creators on the internet.
Mhm.
And on in the TikTok space, I felt like he was doing work that deserved more eyeballs all the time. Um, and to make a sort of a long, definitely more complex story than you or I are maybe even aware of all the details. To make it short, um, there was sort of a process of witnessing this person in crisis over the last year, and anyone who was watching his content or was a friend of his content sort of saw that he was struggling. He went from being a very, very funny, prolific creator to like posting once every couple of weeks, and it was always like kind of disturbing. It was always like, oh, I don't know what's going on in this guy's life right now. And it's that weird parasocial thing where you're sort of like watching and going like, am I supposed to do something here? Should I like try to like find family members and intervene in some way? But it's also like, I don't know. I hope that he has people in his life. And it all culminated last week with a video that he made and sent out to all of his fans, thanking everyone for following him and for giving him an audience for the last few years, and saying how grateful he was that he was able to make some people laugh and have people appreciate his work. And he just said, I have nothing to complain about, and I've had a really wonderful life. Thank you so much. And everyone who watched the video got this feeling of like, uh-oh, that doesn't feel great. The vibes on that video feel very ominous. And it was just a few short hours later that his older sister posted a video and said, yeah, he's gone. He's not here anymore. And
Yeah, his
it
video
really,
didn't say like, I'm this is goodbye." He didn't necessarily say that, but we knew. I felt like we knew.
Yeah.
somehow. It was
I think he was being pretty, and anyone who had been following had seen the buildup, had
yeah,
seen,
truly,
yeah,
there was a
and
decline sort of in his well-being, emotional well-being.
yeah, and I struggle with I've struggled with substance use problems, and I know that Joe did as well. And this is the other thing too, is it's like it's so interesting because I considered myself such a huge fan of him, and I didn't learn his name was Joe McCluskey until that day. I
Same.
knew him as
Yeah.
Von Vidi. Von Vidi was like just this really funny guy on the internet that I followed. I hadn't even really dug into his music. I knew that the music existed. I'd heard him
Yeah.
talk about it a few times, but I hadn't even really dug in. And even in our correspondence, messaging back and forth with each other, I never asked him his name. I just was like, I think you're really great. And like, we would just sort of like, he would message me and say like, that video you just made about this, like, I really liked that. And I'd be like, oh, thanks, man. Like stuff like that.
Mm.
And, it's been so interesting the last like 10 days to sort of like marinate in the totality, more of the totality of what he made and what he did, and to sort of reflect on my own output. And I think that's sort of what I made a video about it, and that's sort of what put you in touch with me, was like, hey, I saw your
Mhm.
video about Von Vidi. I followed that guy too. And
Yeah.
yeah,
That
yeah,
really did
yeah.
hit resonate with me. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Maybe there's a lag a little bit. But
Go
the thing
ahead.
is, like, with him, he was one of the first people I found, and I thought the same thing. Like, why aren't more people seeing him? Because he's one of the funniest people. Like, he hit so many angles of the human experience. Like, I think it's because he's so smart, and I totally understand how he would, and I feel like I didn't know him. Maybe you didn't know him, like you'd never met before, right? You had just
Yeah, no, never met in
messaged a little
person.
bit, like, yeah. Um, and I could see why. I feel like you two are like contemporaries of each other in the aesthetic of like style of humor, serious videos, music making, the range of how prolific you are. And so I just imagined how much this would have resonated with you and hit you. And when I saw you make this video about him, it really, people need to check that out too. Just, it's you basically talking about him a little bit. You collected some highlights of his work, a lot of really good ones. And I like that you let it breathe. You just like had his videos there for people to see if they've never seen them before. Um, and he was so funny and so smart and so clever. And just, I didn't ever know him either, but I feel grief for this person and for, of course, people who knew him. And I feel really sad about it. And I've been thinking a lot ever since. I feel like it's affecting me a lot as well.
I think that the thing you and I both resonate with, and the thing that I think made me stop in my tracks and go, I need to take a minute here and think
Yeah.
about how I'm approaching my work a little bit, and just sort of check in and make sure I'm okay, and make sure that I'm doing this in a healthy way. And this is the title of the episode, is obsession. I think that what was familiar in a person like Joe to both of us is that sort of just kind of obsessive drive to just like always be creating. And if you're not always dug into some creative project, you somehow feel like you're wasting your gift, or so, like you're wasting time. It's like, there can be this sort of singularity of purpose that comes into focus uh in an artist's life, where they feel like, if I'm not meant to do this, then I don't know what I exist to do. And that can be a real gift. It can be a real gift to have that clarity and be like, oh, this is the only thing I ever want to do for the rest of my life. I'm certain of it. So many people don't get that. So many people are going through life, checking in with a 9 to 5 and kind of going like, I do this because it allows me to stay alive and keep eating and have a roof over my head, and maybe I have a family to provide for, but I definitely don't think this is like what I feel called to do in the world. And I'm not even sure what it is that I feel called to do in the world. And so to have that sort of clarity, like I've been learning so much about Joe, and it's like Joe went to law school and like studied to be a lawyer, and like had papers of his published in his school's law review and stuff like that. Like incredibly smart person, but quickly after law school, just like ditched that to go like play in bands and stuff and just be like, never mind, I'm gonna be an artist. And like definitely, and I know people like this who like had an opportunity to do something that maybe would have been a little bit more secure, a little more stable, a little more consistent income wise, but like threw themselves you know, recklessly with abandon into creating art. And I mean, it can be a really, really stimulating and exciting venture to embark on, but it can also be an incredibly, under capitalism, it can be an incredibly lonely and isolating and desperate venture too. You can really get, there can be a lot of despair in there of like, I'm working so hard and it doesn't really feel like anything I'm doing is creating anything near the impact that I would hope it would, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. That's really well put. And I want to point out the irony, the beautiful irony of reckless creation. You said something of like recklessly creating art, which is a
Yeah.
way I have felt, which is like, you know, I guess there is a line, there's always a distinct line between that being a good, healthy, positive thing or a negative thing. Because like, as you know, I have also with music, especially in the past and sometimes to this day, but I try my best to not overdo it, is overachieve essentially is the way I think of it. And overachieving is too much. It's usually at the expense of our well-being. And if that's the case, then it's not necessarily a good thing. Like people might not be aware of that. Like I was just making songs recklessly as well that could not, like I didn't necessarily have anyone that knew that that might be a negative thing. Sometimes people don't perceive it that way. I think a lot of people discover it through maybe a crash and burn or someone else's example of it. Are you still there, by the way? It looks like it froze. Oh, never mind. We're
Yeah.
back. But yeah, the obsession with overachieving is something I guess you and I, in our own individual ways, like many people, fell victim to. And it's something I'm really passionate about because it's just being the way I see it, because I started therapy a couple years ago, and I'm practicing being nicer to myself and having a clear distinction between leisure time and work. When I first started therapy with one of my first therapists, I was talking about the things going on in my life, and then he said, "But where's David?" And like I was like, I don't know.
You're like,
There's all this.
I am the things. Like
Yeah.
David is the music. Like, what do you mean? Yeah.
I know, and I'll never forget that because I was like, "Oh, no. Yeah. This is something I need to think about," because
The question
yeah.
that keeps fucking me up lately, because I'm like dating, I'm like on dating apps, and I'm see, you know, and people
Yeah.
keep asking me like, what do you do for fun? And I'm always like, well, like I just work. And I'm like, I just, and I'm like, and I like the work that I do. Like a lot of times, sometimes I just have to do something. Sometimes I just have to like make a video for a brand or something. And like, that's work, you know? And sometimes I just have to like pump out a video because I have to have content to feed the algorithm and to feed the audience. And it is just work. But I'm like, in general,
Yeah.
like I enjoy the fact that I get to have a creative job. But when people ask me like, but what do you just like to do in your free time? And I'm like, oh, well, usually when I have a day off where I'm like not making videos or something, I'll like see that as an opportunity to like work on songwriting or something, you know, or to work on writing that script that I've been needing to do punch ups on or something like that. And then like it always comes back to like finding a way to have more output and to be more prolific and to be, you know,
More
like
work.
to like
Yeah.
more work. And it's just like that question has been getting to me when people say, no, but what do you do? What do you like? I know that I know like what you do, but like when you're not doing that stuff, and I'm just sort of like, I like going to the movies. Like it's interesting. Yeah.
Wait, can I ask you a question that I think a lot of people would like to know, if you don't mind sharing? Just like, what is a day in the life of Austin Archer? Like, what do you have a schedule for yourself? Is it sometimes something that you keep flexible just in case something comes up? Um, what is that like these days, if you don't mind sharing?
Well, I think like many artists, I'm terribly disorganized with like a schedule. I have this giant calendar on the back of my wall that's like in many of my videos that I bought because like if I type things into my phone for my calendar, I won't. The notification will come up and I'll just push it away. Like, get out of here. I'm busy doing
Same.
something else. Yeah, and so
You
it's
could
like I
probably
need
see
to
it. I
like
have a
yeah,
whiteboard calendar.
yeah. I have to like see it, but even then, it's like I still don't do it. I still am like, I remember
Mm.
I got an appointment next Wednesday for this thing, and it's in here. And I'm just like, I'm terribly disorganized. But like on a day to day basis, it's like there's always a never ending to do list of things that never gets finished, and there's always things getting
Yeah.
added to it. And on any given day, I'm hoping to cross off 5 or 6 things from that list, and
Yeah.
there's always things that I do every day. Like every day will involve editing of some sort of 1 or 2 videos that I'm working on. I'm making long form YouTube video content now. So like those YouTube videos take several days to edit. And so I'll usually try to put in 2 or 3 hours a day on just focusing on that edit. But then
Yeah.
I'll work on something else, a script that I need to turn in to a client or something like that, or you know, but it's very flexible because I also really try to I'm really trying to see like social time as an important time. So when a friend or somebody says, hey, would you like to get together for coffee on Tuesday afternoon? And I know I can because I'm the boss. I run Austin Archer
Mhm.
LLC. Like I don't have to like get time off with anyone. The only reason why I couldn't get coffee is it would mean I would be taking time away from work. I really try to be intentional about like, that's important too. That's really important. I have to like go take a couple hours and just be a person talking to another person and just like be, like it, and it's okay. And my YouTube page will be here when I get back, and my TikTok account will be here when I get. And, like but it's relentless. It never stops. People make fun of this job a lot. I make fun of the job a lot of being like an influencer or a content creator. I'm like, all the words sound bad. Um,
Yeah.
but but like it is the hardest I've ever worked on anything in my life. And it's every day, it's relentless. There's never a day, I don't take a day off from work entirely ever. I always am doing something.
Really?
What about for you? Are you trying to take more time?
Well, first off, I'm really impressed with your juggling of the overall tasks you have going on. And for me, I don't necessarily like, I don't know. I try to just enjoy life because for some reason, a few years back, I used to just make music nonstop and like hang out with people that were making music nonstop and listen to music nonstop. And it was, yeah, nonstop. It was too much. And I kind of like hit a wall around 2017, 2018. I wasn't so familiar with disassociation. Like I was aware of it, but I hadn't like experienced it so much. And I started to and it was in a period where I was like peak working, like the most I've ever worked, the hardest I've ever like put myself through working on music. And I didn't have the word for it. I just thought, "Oh, I'm checking out." Like, I didn't know I was overdoing it. I just thought there was something wrong, like generalized anxiety or depression or something, but it was deeper. Like, it was those things plus I'm putting myself through no breaks. And um I it took me a long time to really seek help to figure out what to do. I kept there was like a month in 2017. It was I remember because it was November 2017. I spent every day that month for like 10 hours a day making an album, and I did. And the album did considerably well and everything. And it's the one thing I can't listen to. I can't listen back to because it just has such a negative place for me of how much work I did and how much I needed to really rest. And um, it's hard to talk about sometimes because sometimes with music, like it's so meaningful to me. Like everything that you're doing, you make music too. It's a really enjoyable thing to engage in. Like it's therapeutic. You can with audio, like with sound. I'm a sound engineer as well. Like I spend a lot of time listening back, and I'll like work on something that I can listen to it later. And um, it always ends up being kind of work. But then um, I got to a point where um, I needed therapy, essentially. I really needed help. And I started to really write down lists every day. Like I have a to-do list and I have an important to-do list. And my important to-do list is one that I have no excuses for. Like I have to, things I have to do, very essential things um, like go on a walk, like get outside, or take a nap. I'm a pretty prolific nap taker. I'm a really tired person.
I'm a
um,
good nap taker too. Yeah.
oh, cool, good. A lot of people
Yeah.
don't do it. I don't know. I don't
Mm.
understand how people don't. Um,
It stresses me out when I have a day that I start to see that my
yeah.
window that I was going to put my nap in is is dwindling away. Or I'm like, oh shit, I don't think I'm going to be able to fit the nap in today. And then I'm like, oh no,
Yeah.
I'm gonna, because what happens too is like I'll get to the end of the day and then somehow I'll be wide awake at like 11 p.m. And I'm like, oh, I was tired all day.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know.
yeah,
I know that feeling too, where it's like, or if you're out of the house all day, you can't really nap. There's not really a way you can. So you have to
yeah.
just power through the day. I don't feel like we're made to do that. I don't know. I don't know if that's just me, but to be out of the house all day, working, always doing something without, because I don't know. I felt like I kind of struggled with meditation. I tried to use meditation to help me like rest and relax. That ended up turning into naps and micro meditations, which are more effective for me personally.
Yeah.
But napping is so therapeutic for me. I wake up feeling better, and even if it's 20 minutes or an hour, I don't know, 5
Yeah,
minutes,
some
like
people
it's
don't.
helpful.
Some
Yeah.
people say that they wake up feeling more tired, but it's really nice for me. It's a good way to break up my day. It's also like I have like an addict brain too, and like I'm very like treat based. Like my brain does well when it like knows I'm gonna give it a treat after something.
Yeah.
I'm like, you get a treat if you do this. Like I'm gonna let you have this thing, and like sometimes like my brain will be working through the first half of the day going like my nap is scheduled for like 3 p.m., and I'm like, oh, I'm almost at the 3 p.m. nap, and then yeah, it's
That's
like,
another sign we're getting older. We're looking forward to a nap.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
uh
it's good. It's
I want to talk a little bit about, so you talked about this album that you made in 2017, this like where you just work 10 hours a day. And I totally relate to this. I've been there with albums before where it's like the only way to get this done is just to sort of be in a hole about it. And it can be hard on
yeah.
relationships. I mean, the last album I made, I was in a long-term relationship, and I was also making
Yeah.
TikTok content full time, but I was also like, I
Mhm.
had to schedule like several days a week where I would spend 12 hours that day doing nothing but tracking and just like, because like I had like
Yeah.
deadlines that I needed to get my tracks to for my audio. Like my audio engineer would be like, can you have this track and this track and this track to me by this day? And so I'd be like, okay, I have to get this song into a shape that I can send it to be mixed, and like, and
Yeah.
it's, and there's a part of me that loves that. There's a part of me
Yeah.
that there is a part of me that like I could do that every day for the rest. I could do it till it kills me. Like,
Yeah.
but there's also a part of me that like sees the cost and the toll that it can take. Um, so I want to talk a little bit about output here with you,
Yeah.
and sort of this concept of like, does like does like the volume of output that an artist creates, does that mean like prolificacy and stuff like that? People use this word a lot, prolific, and all it really means is that like you put out a lot, like your
A
output is
lot.
high.
Yeah.
Yeah, and people are impressed by the output, and that's a thing that people say to me a lot, is they'll be like, I don't get how there's so much. It's like the YouTube videos, the podcast, the music, and I'm like, and to me, my brain will always still think I should be doing more, or I should be finding a way to do. I shouldn't be taking those naps. I should be finding a way to do more. But then I also like, I will come across people, and Joe, after Joe died, I always knew that Joe was like me and like you, and I knew that
Yeah.
Joe was a high output, high volume artist, who was uploading at least as much to TikTok as I was at the time that I found him. And we were both like daily uploaders who were sometimes uploading 2 to 3 videos a day. And it was like
Yeah.
a very high output. What I didn't know until after he died was that at that same time, he was putting out albums of music that were like 30 songs each. And
Yeah.
he was putting out like 10 to 15 of those a year.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I don't know, because in that time, and from 2020 to 2023, I've done one big album of my music, and I've done a bunch of TikTok albums. That was another thing, is like I
Yeah.
was making these TikTok songs, and I wound up making like 70 of those over a couple of years. And like
Mhm.
people are always like, how come you don't make the songs anymore? I'm like, I made 70. And I'm like, there's a lot for like, you know,
We
I'm
need
like, how
more,
many?
Austin.
Yeah. But like, and I knew you were out there doing your thing, but the other day when you messaged me, I didn't realize, like, you were like, I've put out 14 albums. And I was like, and it's like, you put out 14 albums since 2015, which
That's
is
right.
roughly 2 a year, which is like, which is crazy. Like that's
It is.
like many artists who are very, very famous and very high at the top of their game won't put out. I don't know if Taylor Swift has 14 albums. I don't think she does.
I don't
And like,
know. Yeah.
you know, like
She's hustling too.
and she's been doing it since like 2002 or something. Like she's been
Yeah.
around, you know. Um,
Yeah.
but
I
like,
had that pointed out to me. Someone said, "You have 14 albums, and that's so crazy." And I didn't know I had 14 albums. And then I went back, I was like, "Are you serious?" And I counted it, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is insane." It made me really think about, okay, you know what's funny though, is that so much of that was like the first half of the last, wait, 2015 was 8 years ago now? Okay. Uh, the first half of the last 8 years was most of that, and stuff just residually comes out over time. Like I still have stuff from back then that's gonna come out in the future, um, which gives an illusion that I'm still really active. That's the funny thing with music, is you can like create stuff and then put it out when you feel ready to, and it's not necessarily like, oh, I just made this, so it's coming out. If that's what I just did, sometimes it takes a lot of time, and I'm really like picky with what I put out, and I don't put out. I
so
really,
that means that
yeah,
means there's a whole bunch of David Allred music that is unreleased outside of those
so
14
much,
albums. Yeah.
an even more insane amount. It's really crazy. Yeah, I have stuff I complete. You know, it's really crazy too. And to touch back on my experience with disassociation, I have songs, and this actually freaks me out. I don't know if you would relate to this, but I have some songs I have no memory of making. Like it's so weird to hear it. Like it'll be like my voice, and I'm like, that's me. I can hear I did that, but it was when I was like in a not well, like mental health place, and just still doing it. And yeah.
Well, and I think that's sort of the drug of songwriting and creating music a little bit too, at least for me, is like there is sort of, when it's working well, when it's coming from a place of like a really raw, honest, genuine emotion, and it's sort of gushing out,
Yeah.
and like demanding to come out. There is sort of this weird like trance-like thing where like once it's done, people will go like, what's that about? And you're like, I'm not sure. And then you're like, I have
Yeah.
ideas of what it might be about. you're like, there were thoughts in my head as it was coming out. And then when I listen back to it, I think that there are things I might be talking about, but it is sort of like this free associative like process that where it's just sort of flowing out without much. I've been wondering that about, like, I've been listening to a lot of Joe's music, and
Yeah, same.
I just finished the album Midwest Kitsch, which is 35 songs
Oh,
long, and it's
over an hour.
yeah, and it's the album that he recommended himself. So about a week before he posted his goodbye video, he posted I think that he was aware of his plans, and he posted a video saying like, hey, just so everyone knows, I also make music. If you want to get into my music, this is the album I would recommend starting with, out of his like
many
36 albums or something. He was like, listen to
Yeah.
Midwest Kitsch. And so I listened to Midwest Kitsch, and I really enjoyed it. But I was sitting there going, like, knowing what I know about my own process and what you just said about how you could sort of go into this like almost like trance state. I'm like, I wonder how many of these songs came. And I also know that Joe was struggling with substance use. And I'm like, I wonder how many of these songs came out of some kind of drug addled, like trance fog. And he's like, he like produced it in a single night, like fueled by Adderall and who knows what, like cough syrup or whatever. And like listens to it back and is like, I like that song, but it's also like, goddamn, like, cause he talks quite extensively about suicide in that album and in a lot of his songs. And it's sort of in a way where like, cause I have songs from my past where I talk about that. Cause I used to struggle a lot with suicidal ideation and depression. And when I would write some of those songs, I wouldn't be thinking I'm going to write a song about suicide. I would be like writing lyrics. And then later I'd be like, oh, I'm kind of very blatantly talking about wanting to kill myself there. And I'm like, I didn't really
very
think of it
blatantly.
Yeah. And I'm like, I didn't really think about it when I wrote it. Like,
yeah, I've had that too. Sometimes I don't always realize what I'm saying until later. I'm like, oh wait, yeah, that's probably too much information. But it's that trance, like you said, like, we get into this. There's something magical about being creative and inspired. And when you're doing something and it's like, it makes you feel powerful and amazing. And when you do something, it really, like, it's really special. Like, I don't know, like maybe when you wrote Nobody Cool Likes Tucker Carlson, like you there's probably this very exciting feeling inside that was like, this is really like, this is, it's really funny. I feel like it's objectively funny and fun. It's just like a good, beautiful thing. And I have that feeling where I'll write a song and then I know it's like a good one. And I'm like, okay, this like, I just get obsessed and I can't think about or do anything else. I just have to finish this idea and it's mine. And I guess it's,
how long, I feel like, maybe I'm wrong here, but were you always doing instrumental composition, or did it, because I feel like wasn't in your first albums you were doing more like singer-songwriter stuff, and did you slowly transition to compositions, or were you always doing strictly compositions mixed in with singer-songwriter style music?
Yeah, I was always doing singer-songwriter for a bit, but then it turned into more compositional, and these days I'm more drawn to making instrumental music because there's something just, I feel like, kind of magical about there being no words. I really like lyrics too. I'm drawn to lyrics and I still write songs with lyrics, but I just kind of realized it was, and I also had the thought, like, if people, I was aware people were listening to my music that didn't know English as well, and that partially inspired me, like, maybe I should make something instrumental, and then it's kind of the same, more so universal, I guess, for that. But then again, like, yeah, I feel like I've always done both, but I'm slowly, I feel like whatever I say, I'm going to jinx myself, but and do the opposite. But I feel myself being more drawn to instrumental music. I feel like it's more and more my voice is a little bit right now, at least, but that always changes and I'm always evolving, and I may end up just singing a bunch more, who knows. But what about you? Like, as far as I know, have you explored instrumental music? Is that something
You know
I
what?
know you as a vocalist.
A little bit. When I first started doing this podcast, I don't do this anymore, but when I first started doing this podcast, I would write original theme music for every episode. So every episode would like have its own theme music, and I would write and I would do these like instrumental compositions for like whatever the tone of the intro was or the topic was. And so some were like a little bit more lighthearted and comical, and some were a little bit more serious, and some were a little bit more like in between, like thoughtful and
Yeah.
ethereal. And that was fun. It was just too much work. It was just like a thing where I was like, I can't be making TikTok videos because I was also writing. Like I would do like a written intro. So it's like I would have to spend time every week like writing the intro to the podcast, then writing the music for it, then like editing the podcast together. And I was like, I think I'm making the podcast too much work. I think I need to like simplify the podcast process, because not a lot of people consume this podcast. It's like my least consumed thing that I make. I still enjoy doing it, but it's like 2,500 people a week that come and listen to it. And I'm like, and that's enough people for me to be like, that's enough people to talk to every week to do a little like chat with. But it's nowhere near the amount of people that are consuming the videos that I post to Instagram or TikTok or YouTube. And so it's like, I was a little bit like, oh man, I'm putting a lot of effort into this thing, but
You should make an elaborate like orchestral like soundtrack to this entire episode, like very detailed to every moment.
And then it
Spend
won't
hours.
come out for 6 months. I'll be
Yeah. Just go way above and beyond. No, yeah, I know what you mean. That's a lot to take on. And yeah.
I wonder if this happened for you too. So here's another thing that I sort of think happened to a guy like Joe. When I try to consider because like you said, it's like I don't want to make it seem like doing what we do is like this dangerous, unhealthy thing. It's a
Right. It can
it's
be.
a beautiful it can be, and it's a beautiful thing, and it's a thing that we do it. I mean, do you watch the show The Bear?
No.
It's a great show. It's a fantastic TV show on Hulu, but it's all about like the food service industry and the culinary arts, and
Oh.
how people who like go to culinary school and people who like aspire to be professional chefs, like for most people who are fanatical about food in that way and making good food, they'll wind up like best case scenario is like maybe being head chef at like a decent like sit down restaurant in like a nice city. But like you're not like nobody's gonna know you, and you're gonna be like working on the line just like everybody else, and it's grueling, backbreaking, relentless work, and it's every day, and every day has a rush, and every day has fires to put out, and
Yeah.
it's this relentless pursuit, and all that it's for at the end of it is just hoping that people just enjoy the food that you made. They're gonna eat it and they're gonna poop it out. But it's like hoping in like the 10 minutes that they're consuming it, or the 20 minutes that they're consuming it, that like they have a nice experience, that like you can offer them something. And it's like, and they won't even usually there won't be any interaction, but it's like this like obsessive, backbreaking, and it reminds me a lot of like what we do. And
Yeah.
so I don't want to make it sound like I'm just saying, oh, this is like this thing that takes so much more than it gives. But I wonder if this happened to you. I know it happened to me. I felt like I had been toiling in obscurity, as many artists do, for years and years and years of my life, making music largely just for my own gratification and entertainment, acting in plays at small theaters for a couple hundred people. Every time I would do it, I'd rehearse for 4 weeks for a show that a couple hundred people are going to come see, and no one's ever going to see that show ever again, and it's gone, and it's ethereal, and it disappears. And the moment that I had a hint of an audience is paying attention now, there's people watching, all of a sudden there's people here, and maybe you experience this as like, oh, like I've got some songs on some bigger playlists on Spotify, and there's an audience growing here, and I actually have some like attention from some managerial people who can like get me into some tours, and I can start playing in some cool venues and stuff like that. And I think this happened with Joe. I see this where like it's just like an artist who's just sort of toiling away, honing their craft, and then all of a sudden there's people there saying, I see you and I like what you're doing and you're cool. And that work that you're putting into it explodes, because it's like, oh, well, now that I got the people here, I got to go 10 times as hard as I used to go. And now I have to make sure that everything I do is like living up to a certain standard. And I've, and the drive to be ever more prolific. Cause I mean, just me noticing your output on Spotify, when I look, it's like, yeah, there's like a 2015 album and then there's like a 2017 album, and like, but you put out like 3 or 4 in 2020, like, and it's like there's like there's this like progression of like, like where like all of a sudden it's like as you get more people paying attention because you were able to do some of these tours and meet more people in the industry, that output seems to start to grow. And did you find a correlation with that?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think with the pandemic too, that was a weird time because 2019 I started really making enough to support myself on music. And I had really big things going on that I had really exceptional opportunities before 2020 happened that did not happen because of 2020. And I felt really bummed about it. Essentially, I felt like I was unemployed. Like there were so many I felt like I was getting everything I wanted for a while, and it was like kind of really addictive. And yeah, I was like touring, people were listening. I was collaborating with heroes and stuff. And then when 2020 happened, I felt aggressively humbled. Like I don't know, it just put me, it felt like I needed to stop. It also helped me slow down a little bit, but you'll see that there's 4 albums that came out in 2020. That's the truth, but the real truth is a lot of that music was made before that I just had the time to consolidate and release. And I thought, why not? Maybe I overcompensated by I kept putting out more and more because I was so scared of losing work or something. That's a scary thing. And the uncertainty of internet related work is scary. Like if it's working for a period of time, you never know when that kind of thing goes away. And that's why the word content creation exists. Like I don't like that term. It's a neutral term now that we all understand what it means, but it feels to me like I've never also been good at social media. I've never really been a social media person. I just like to make music, and I just put out music when I feel like sharing it. But yeah, I know what you mean. I feel like for you, your experience, you're like, with your TikTok presence and everything, you have a lot of eyes on what you're doing. And maybe when you saw that, because I remember you, and I remember a thing called Me and Me Comedy that you used to do, which was really funny. I remember that. And you were not reaching people really, from what I remember.
Like 250 followers. Yeah.
Yeah, now
So,
it's like wild to see how that. Yeah, now you have more followers than I know, but you have a lot of followers now. But it's like basically when you see that change, like you see a shift, people start to appreciate it. You see an opportunity. I guess that's part of late stage capitalism too. Like we hope something can help us get by, which kind of sometimes crosses over the creative like love for what we do. How is that for you? The relationship between trying to survive with it versus doing it for what is meaningful to you. Do you feel like you have to make compromises too much, or is it a pretty healthy balance?
Yeah, that's what I'm still trying to figure out. I've been doing this full time for a little over 3 years now, and
amazing.
I am still trying to, because like sometimes, and this year actually, I really started to feel like I was cutting corners artistically and selling myself short on like a certain standard because I was just trying to keep up with how the regularity and the volume that these platforms demand from you. And it really started to feel like I would like go through older videos and I'd be like, these older videos aren't as like crisp and like some of the quality's gotten better. Like I've gotten like better cameras, and I've gotten better at editing, and I've gotten like better sound and stuff like that. But I'm like, but these older videos like have like an energy to them that I don't know that I have anymore. I just know that I'm tired now. And I know that when I go to make a video now, it more often than not, it feels like work. Whereas when I was first starting out, it was always very exciting. I had an idea that I was possessed by. Even when I was making the songs, you talked about nobody cool likes Tucker Carlson. It's like a thing would come into my brain, and I'd be like, and it would be like there, and it'd be like, nobody cool likes Tucker Carlson. And I'd be like, that's all it is. That's the hook. And then I'd spend like 3 days straight, just like hammering that out and being like, I'm not going to stop until it's done, until the video's done, until the song's done, until, you know, and I don't really have that energy for it anymore. And I think it's just that burnout. And a lot of content creators and influencers talk about this, the burnout of the job. And I'm definitely experiencing that. And it does feel like it affects the artistry of it. It can't help but affect it. And it's also, that's just capitalism too. It's like the only reason why I need to continue grinding so hard is because I make my money doing this now, and I have to constantly be visible to continue having relationships with brands and to, you know, and so it is a thing where it's like, I always am like glad that my job is this and not something else. I've had plenty of terrible soul crushing jobs that I would rather do this than those. So I don't want it to sound like I'm complaining or anything. I just want, you know, I've just been thinking over the last like 10 days a lot about just like, you know, like I'm going out of town for 2 weeks coming up soon. And I'm like, should I even do anything while I'm out of town? Should I even like try to make any videos, or should I just like be out of town and be like, I'm on vacation? You know, like, I don't know.
So when you, like, do you consciously set aside, like if you were to say you're out of town, there's factors to consider, I guess, like ideas might come to you and then you might write them down so you remember them for later. And that's technically work, I guess. And that's always going to be an option. That's something I struggle with is sometimes, I don't know if it's just me or it's very much some quality of my personality, but when someone says something kind of funny and they may or may not realize it's that funny, or I hear or I think of something, I write it down. I just write it down with no context. And I have these notes of insane ideas that may or may not ever. That's something I think about. If I die someday and someone went through my phone, they're going to find the most insane, like unresolved ideas or unfinished thoughts. And I feel like you probably have a really interesting notes app as well.
There's different folders for all different kinds of things. It's it's pretty wacky. I want to address one comment that's in here that I've been looking at for a while. And I think it's just sort of the thing that we're talking about, especially if we're going to talk about mental illness and we're going to talk about, you know, suicide and stuff like that, and sort of the parasocial problem. This person, Timid Giant Art Peter, said a while back in the conversation, they said, is there a solution to that parasocial conundrum? Should viewers reach out despite not having, for lack of better words, traditional connection? You seem to understand it from both ends. And I want to get your thought. Yeah, because like I had people in my life, or I had other creator friends after Joe died who were like, should I have done more? Like, I saw that happening in slow motion. I saw Joe struggling in that way. And now I'm like, was I supposed to do something? Was I supposed to step in? And I'm not, I don't know. For me personally, you know, I've been sober for 5 years and I work with guys who are in crisis all the time. I work with people who I see newcomers coming into a program, really like their life is in shambles and like things are not going well. And people all the time will come in and be like, I don't know if this is the right time for me to do this. It might be really hard to get sober right now. Like everything in my life's kind of falling apart. Like my girlfriend just left me. I just lost my job. My dad just died, yada, yada, yada. Like the list goes on. And I'm always like, oh, that's when it happens. Like, I'm like, you're right where you need to be. Like you're in crisis. Like you don't come in here because everything's going great. Like, don't worry. But it's a thing where it's like, I can't really help someone unless they want to be helped. I can't
Right.
force someone to let me help them. And so when I watch someone who's in, I see this all the time too, where it's like, I'll be out hanging out at a social thing and I'll see someone drinking in a way or using drugs in a way that
Mhm.
I clock as problematic. Just as an addict, I see it and I'm like, I know what
Yeah.
that is. And I'm like, and I that person's probably got a problem, but I can't go up to that person and go like, let me help you. I got this. Like, get up.
Yeah.
I'm going to take you to a meeting right now. Like, that's not how it works. And like, you know,
Yeah.
like my therapist has an office that people can go to, and like real healing can take place at that office. But like, in order for it to work, you have to be a very willing participant. You have to pay for time with her every week and show up for that time and be willing to
Yeah.
participate in a process like that for sometimes years on end. And so I don't know. What I don't want is, I don't want people feeling like guilty that they saw someone like Joe struggling and they didn't intervene in some way. It's like, I don't think that that's really how this is meant to work. I don't think you're supposed to like step in and be a superhero and pull someone back. I don't know. Do you, if you have thoughts
That's
on that?
yeah, it's that's really well put. I agree. Well, you know, I like how it's worded, parasocial conundrum. It is a conundrum because it's like you can do something that might help in some way, and we might not know, like we have that option. But the way like psychology experts of the world would say, like, it's not your responsibility to fix someone. It's not your job. But what you can do is like, you know, check in on someone, ask how they're doing, ask if they would like to talk about anything. Um, but also like, you know, whether or not you can you know, we see like, because it's parasocial, it's someone, again, we have never met, that we both follow because of how like, I felt like he's someone, I feel like we would be friends with him or something if we had the chance to meet. And like,
Totally.
because of how much of his like creative mind and humor and serious, meaningful, thoughtful mind works, is like, you know, I think that, so that's the parasocial aspect where I will see someone doing something on the internet and sharing something about themselves, and it makes me feel like, oh, I'd like to know that person, or I'd like to message them and just say, I like what you're doing and think it's great. Um, you know, but yeah, it's tricky. It's not our responsibility, and we can't help, because I heard you say like earlier, I wondered if I should have done, like, I should write him, or you know, there's always someone struggling. He wasn't necessarily asking for help, like you also pointed out. Like we could see the signs. I saw it too. Like his videos changed, like his style changed.
Well,
Um,
and then whatever he was involved in, because he was at a treatment center for a while and he posted videos from a treatment center. And in my brain and in my experience with recovery, it's like, well, he is doing what he can for himself. And there are people at whatever center he's at that he's probably going to meetings with, and that process is going to go however it goes. But it's like, me
yeah.
in LA and Joe in Minnesota, I'm like, am I supposed to fly out to Minnesota and like hold his hand and go to meetings with
Oh,
him? Or, you know, and the thing is,
yeah.
it's like, I genuinely think if Joe had ever reached out to me and said, hey, I know you're sober, would you be willing to chat on the phone sometime about this sobriety stuff? It's really got me by, you know, it's really like got me in a vice. Like, I would have gone,
Yeah.
absolutely. Would have said, absolutely. Like, when do you have time? Let's jump on the phone and let's talk, you know?
Absolutely.
Uh,
Yeah. At that point. Yeah.
but it's like, and I do think, I don't want to say like, there's nothing you can do, but it's like, yeah, like you said, it's like, I think that, yeah, you can reach out, say, hey, is everything okay? How are you? But just in my experience with this stuff, it really feels like, the, like, healing is going to take place if and when that person wants it to.
Right. That's really well put. I love that. And I think, you know, sometimes not only just asking someone how are you doing, what's new or anything, it can be like, maybe you want to tell them a story, or you could say something to someone. You can, because sometimes people don't want to talk about themselves, I guess, if it's really personal and difficult, and they will if they want to, but opening the door for it at least is always going to be appreciated, I think, because we are social creatures. Um, I love when, sometimes I'll get a message from someone I haven't heard from in years, and I think it's really sweet. And it's just, we like to be thought of. It's really nice when someone's just like, hey, you just crossed my mind because of da da da. Like, how's it going? Like, what's new? Or, you can, yeah, just engage in the conversation and kind of play it by ear at the time, because I'm also a very deep thinker. I tend to like go really heavy into heavy-hearted conversations with people probably pretty quickly, and more quickly than other people are wanting to sometimes. And that's something I need to take inventory of as well, because sometimes people don't want to talk about their feelings right away, or what's really, causing them mental health issues. But yeah, I'm trying to be better at checking in on people, being responsive to people that are checking in on me as well, because that really matters. It can go a long way. And with Von Vidi, I don't know, it's hard to tell. Like he seemed to thrive independently. Like everything seemed to be him, just like him
Yeah.
behind what he does.
Yeah.
Like I don't necessarily, maybe there are videos with other people, but I don't really remember that. I always just think of him with his own idea that's very good, but it was cool for him to, to get people to really get it. Like, I think he loved the fact that people were watching his videos and
Totally.
listening to him. And it's so sad. And there's a point at which we think maybe there's something we could do in that scenario, but it was probably a long time coming. It was probably meant to be. He got to go on his own terms too, which I think is something people don't always, it's not just inherently sad. Like it is, but it's also like, I like to think he lived the life, dealt with what he could with his situation the best he could, and gave it an earnest effort. He sings and talks about recovery, talks about healing, mental health. He really cares. Like, he wasn't just ignoring his responsibilities. Like he really put an earnest effort and reached his capacity, I think.
Yeah, we have a tendency sometimes, some people have a tendency to be really resentful and harsh toward people who die by suicide. And there's this rhetoric that's very common that you hear, that it's an act of cowardice, that it's an act of selfishness, that it's a callous, like these people had no regard for how much pain they were going to cause other people when they did that. They couldn't handle it. They didn't have the courage to keep living. And I want to be careful with how I move forward here, because I understand that where this rhetoric comes from is from a place of deep hurt and grief and pain. So people are experiencing pain and they're lashing out, and they're like, I'm upset. And I know the feeling. My best friend died by suicide 4 years ago. And there were several times where I was like, God, fuck that guy. I was just like, oh, dude, like, why'd you do that? Like, I'm so annoyed at you that you didn't like, at least just like, I'm so mad at you, like I was so, and I get it. Grief is a dizzyingly confounding process. And I think that everyone is entitled to grieve however they are grieving, and entitled to feel whatever feelings they're feeling. But I also think that coming through those feelings in a state of clarity, I don't think that language is accurate personally. I don't think it's true.
It's
I don't
not as
think it's
conscientious too, I think, because they don't know.
Right. There's all kinds of ways in which the illness is blinding your ability to like think in a like clear-headed way. But also it's like, God, like all of us are so profoundly afraid of death. Like we do whatever we are evolutionarily wired to avoid it at all costs, and to try to push it off as much as possible. We we all want, everyone talks about like hopefully making it to like 90, and it's like, you want to be 90? Like, have you ever seen a 90-year-old? It looks painful. Like
I
it
don't know
looks,
if I
and
necessarily want to be 90.
yeah, it's like 90 looks hard, and like everyone that you know is dead, like all your friends are dead, and like you, and like your body, your
Yeah.
everything just hurts. But everyone's like, man, I hope I hope I get like 50 more years, 60 more years. And it's like, do you though? And it's like, but one thing you
Yeah.
know is for sure is like, it's gonna end. It's going to end.
Yeah.
Like it's going to stop. And somebody in the comments just said, I've never wanted to be 90. And I relate to that. But also then I'm like, yeah, but then like, I think the day that I turn 70, I'm going to be like, I could take 2 more decades. Like I'm here at 7. Like, I don't think when
Yeah.
I turn 70, I'm going to be like, I'm about done with, like, my parents are 70 and my parents are
Imagine
doing
being
great.
89. It's like, yeah, I don't know. We might feel similar in some way,
Right.
but
Yeah. I don't
yeah,
know.
it's
But
context. Yeah.
so many of us want more life. We just want to be here. We're curious. We want to see what's going to happen. And
Yeah.
so I think it feels like this weird, like, evolutionary betrayal of the species for someone to opt to go,
Yeah.
for someone to
Right.
be like, I'm actually done. I'm done today. Today
Mhm.
I'm done, and I'm going to push a button and be done. And we're so like offended by that it's like, how
Right.
dare you? Like, you don't, that's not how this happens. You have to get like hit by a bus or something like that, or you have to get cancer, or you got like, that's how it happens.
As if
And
it's a
it's like,
rule. Yeah.
yeah, but it's like, no, sometimes it happens this way, and it
Mhm.
happens this way frequently. Sometimes there are just people who say, that's enough for me. Everyone else have fun, and love you all very much, and goodbye. And like, it's,
Yeah.
and I think there's a part of me now, 4 years past my friend dying, that like, I view what he did as an incredibly courageous act. That I'm like,
Mm.
you dove into the void head first into this space that
Yeah.
like I'm so scared of. Like, I'm so
Yeah.
afraid of that space. And you were like, I'm going, like, you like jumped out of a plane without a parachute. You
Yeah.
like you did like such a hardcore thing. And like,
Mad respect, truly. Yeah, it's
yeah.
more the most courageous thing, honestly.
Well,
Even
like,
though yeah.
For Joe to like make that video and to be like, I'm going to like
Yeah.
stand in front of all of these people and be like, thank you so much. Seriously, genuinely, thank you. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for like all of the kind words you ever said to me. I'm not mad at anyone. And like, I'm gonna go
Yeah.
now. And thank you. And I'm like, God, like that, like, a lot of people don't get to do that. A lot of people die suddenly. You're in a car accident. You're right in the middle of your life doing stuff, and they don't get to like make a video where they get to tell everyone like, thank you all
Yeah.
so much. This was so wonderful. You guys were so great, and I had so much fun. And like, it was up and down, and it was hard, but like, I smiled a lot and laughed a lot, and I hope
Mhm.
I made some of you laugh and smile, and great, bye-bye. Like, I'm like, that, like, why is that not okay? I just, I'm like, if
Yeah.
that's what we're all gonna do anyway, if we're all going there, why is it not okay for someone to, I don't know, you know?
Go on their own terms
Yeah.
because it's stigmatized, I guess, and it's scary, and like you mentioned grief. Grief is so complex and scary and permanent. Like, death is permanent. Like, yeah, and the existential uncertainty for a lot of people, like, what is next, if there is anything, and also just, have you heard of the box theory?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I
Love
love
it.
that. Um, my understanding of it is that grief is like a ball in a box that in the box represents your life, and as you're living your life, the box is expanding, but the ball stays the same size, and it doesn't change. And that's kinda like how trauma works, like you're living your life, but the ball will roll over to one side and hit you, and you'll remember a thought or a feeling that was sad, and it feels the same 'cause it's just this un undying feeling of sadness that exists, and it's always there. It's always going to be in your life. It's always a part of you. And that and also just I don't know, another weird thing too about the world we're living in, we're kind of like with all this technology. What's so weird is that like it's like we never die in a way too. Like it's like he's on the internet the same like as he was, and
Oh,
the
he's
perception
popping
of
up on
that,
my For You. He's on my For You page. Like I go on
it's
to
like,
TikTok and he's
yeah.
like there. Yeah,
Isn't that crazy? Like, he's still, because I was also watching his videos after this, and I'll still get them in my For You pages, and it's wild because that could have just been, we could have had no idea he was dead. It's
right.
like the perception of that is really interesting too, because I mean, he made all this work and it's going to continue to be found, but
Yeah, if he
man,
hadn't made a goodbye video and if he had just pieced out, we all could have just been getting on the internet going like, "Oh man, like Von Vidi hasn't posted a video in a minute." Like, you know,
yeah,
it's just
it'd be like,
yeah,
oh, maybe he's
it's
taking a
yeah,
break. I don't know,
yeah, yeah.
but we get this
Uh,
narrative.
yeah, yeah. You know, I'm glad we got to talk about this a little bit. I hope for the audience it wasn't like too much of a downer. I really enjoy what I do. I feel really lucky to do what I do. I want to keep doing it as long as I can. I hope I can find a little bit. I want to continue working toward a healthier work-life balance and finding more things, more good answers to the question of like, what do you do? Where is David? Where is Austin and all of this? I hope you don't stop either. I've been spending a lot of time with your albums the last few days, knowing that we were going to have this conversation and just like really enjoying the soundscapes that you build and the tone and the
Oh,
world that you build. And I highly recommend it to everyone. And I'm glad that you were willing to carve out the time to talk about this a little more. Is there anything that you want to like push people toward or plug before we wrap up here?
oh, I really appreciate that, and likewise, I've been listening to your music, and I just think maybe maybe it's kind of cheesy, but maybe we can plug checking in on that friend in your life that you're wondering simply how they're doing, and you know, just
Yeah.
someone you haven't talked to in a little while.
Go
Just say
listen
hi.
to Midwest. Go listen to Midwest Kitsch by Von Vidi on Spotify. I've linked David's and Joe's music in the description of this video on TikTok or on YouTube, so you can go listen to some of that. And if that album seems too much for you, listen to the song "Welcome to Recovery." That's a good song.
Yeah, that
Uh,
song is so
yeah,
good. I listen to it every day.
yeah, it's a really good song. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, cool. I think that's a good plug. Go check in on your friends. Go check out some music. Go appreciate some art from people who are toiling away in a kitchen just so that you could enjoy for a few minutes a meal that they've made. Um, yeah, David, it's great to see you. Let's chat soon.
Yeah,
Hang
great to
out
see you too.
in this room. I'm going to end the broadcast, but I have to ask you a question. So hang out
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
Yeah. Everybody in the comments, thank you for your comments. Thank you for your feedback. Thanks for being here. Thanks for hanging out. Yeah, we'll see you next time. Okay. Bye-bye.